Hey, Cleveland, this is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Welcome in, off and running, whichever cliche you want me to use today. I do a couple of them every day when we start. It is Wednesday. You know what that means. It's hump day, baby. I gotta do it. I always gotta do it just because I know it annoys a couple dozen of you guys. I think that's the main pleasure I take out of doing that. But it's fun. We gotta have some fun, man. We gotta be different. And then I guess that means having some fun. But you got to enjoy it, man, especially here. I was just talking to a couple of guys before the show. This is the nadir of my existence. This time here and around the baseball all-star break time. Those are the two, what do you want to call it? I don't know, whatever, man. Those are the Bermuda Triangles of sports talk, man, where it just gets thinned out. The herd gets thinned, as they say, and that's where you got to get out there and duke it out. And I'm with it, man. We're gonna have some fun today. Dan Wismar is gonna be a part of the fun as always on Wednesdays. We're gonna talk about a whole bunch of different things with Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. Doug Plagens, voice of the Lake Erie Monsters, he's gonna be with us as well today to knock through some of those midweek doldrums here. And then after today, the week starts to move downhill a little bit and get going. So we'll do it here together. A lot to get into. And I don't know, I'm going to talk about some of these. There's just some random news stories here this morning, man, that's going on. Of course, it's a Wednesday. I mean, we woke up, which means the Browns had to have stepped into some other story. Although, you know, you got to love the agendas that you see in the media sometimes, man. And we'll talk about that. As I said, Dan Wismar, Doug Plagens, you guys, phones are open. Lots of opportunities today for you to get in on the phones. I'm going to want to hear from you. You ready? You want to rock and roll? Let's do the Sports Fix thing. Welcome in, you guys, to the Sports Fix, live weekdays at noon, as it is right now, across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe that means you're listening to the show live on TuneIn or TuneIn's radio applications, their mobile devices. Perhaps you're enjoying us on Spreaker, on Mixler, their digital and mobile apps, or maybe you're enjoying us, as you do every day, perhaps, on the sportsfix.net. That's our home base, baby, right there. Anything you need to know, bookmark it. You've got it right there, thesportsfix.net. I'm your host, by the way, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc here. Jerry Myers, spinning the dials, running the tunes. No, actually, it's talk radio, but I've always wanted to be that DJ, to be that cat daddy spinning the dials and bringing it to you. And one of these days I will. Maybe when I get to be an old fogey, I'm going to get me a job on a classic radio station, and I get to be Mr. Classic. I know we've already got one of those, but I'll be that guy maybe. But anyways, Jerry Myers here, doing the Sports Fix thing. Thanks to you guys as well that are listening on digital delay. Thousands of you who listen around the world 24/7, different time zones on places like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio and SoundCloud, and CarPlay and Spreaker, all the different places that you listen on demand, or you download us, or you feed us through your RSS feeds, or all the different ways that you guys acquire the Sports Fix. Thank you so much for doing it, being with us here. As I said, today phones are going to be open. Good chance to get in 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535 is the number to call. Pick up the phone and use it, doggone it. Don't make me come and do... No, I'm just... 216-539-7535. Can't get to the phone. A lot of you, as always, at work. Love to talk to us via the electronic communication things. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. You can email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Again, Facebook, just search for The Sports Fix, or facebook.com/thesportsfix. Twitter at The Sports Fix CLE. Man, I'll tell you, you know what? First things first, man, as we get rolling, you know how you know it's a slow news cycle. And I'm not trying to demean the story at all, because we're going to talk about it here too. But when you want to talk about it, you need to look no further than the fact that it's headlines everywhere, the Little League story, which, of course, I mean, again, I'm not trying to demean the story or undermine it, but taking center stage. And what in the world is wrong with people? Seriously, what is wrong with adults? I mean, I get being competitive and all of that stuff, but for those of you guys that don't know, before I even start going, the story coming out here, the Chicago team, the Jackie Robinson West Little League Baseball, has stripped them of their U.S. championship from this past run here, as well as suspending the head coach because they were grouping them up. They were super teaming it up over there, man. They were doing, bringing guys in from different areas across lines where you're not supposed to be. All the things that people get accused of doing when they're trying to group the best players together. A lot of times high schools accuse each other of things like that. Not just accuse each other, but you guys know, we hear about it a lot. They'll monkey, the guys will live in an address that's in a different time zone, or zip code, so that time zone. Yeah, well, they're not on the other side of the world. They're just on the other side of the city here. Let's do this again. But they're in a different zip code or whatever, so that they could go to a different school. I mean, I hear it all the time. Relatives of mine, I know people that say, hey, we're going to use his dad's address or his mom's address so that he can go to this school instead of that school or whatever. So it's not like it's not commonly done a lot, but apparently poaching players, Charles, that's a good term here. This team was doing a lot of that here and putting themselves together to what was equated as a super team and a team that was built with all. Anyways, this is Little League Baseball, and I know anything can be monetized. Little League Baseball has, their World Series. It's a big deal on television, TV rights. It's become a marketing thing. It's not the innocent Little League Baseball that it was of the, perhaps your parents' days or whatever. But still, man, I mean, okay, I don't know how to do this without sounding like that old guy in the corner talking about fairness and things that don't exist anymore, but we're talking Little League Baseball. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys deal with Little League Baseball. I mean, if you don't have kids, you may not unless you choose to coach or something like that, but I have children, so I'm in that. I see it. I see it every summer, different leagues, different organizations, all of that stuff, man. And, man, it's kids playing baseball. And I told you guys some of my complaints I've had over just my experiences even in high school with some of the different coaches that my sons come across, the ones that care, the ones that don't. And I believe in general, that's what you do. You're not there to win and lose, especially at this level, you guys. You're there. There's so much more to it, man. You're teaching kids, and it sounds, I feel funny saying it because I feel like I'm that guy wagging my finger going, well, it's about teamwork and but it is, man. What else are you teaching kids for, man? Are we out here? You really think that, what percentage of these kids goes on to play at higher levels? I mean, keep it real, man. I mean, that's what you're doing. The kids are having fun. You're teaching them teamwork. You're teaching them a sport. You're teaching them all the things that come with it. The value system, the teamwork is a huge part of that. They're working together to accomplish a goal. Just seeing things through. I learned just by having kids that, hell, just getting them to make it from the beginning of the season to the end of the season teaches them something, because you have no clue how many times they want to quit halfway through, or they get get bored, or they don't like what they're doing, or they just decide they want to do something else because their other friends that aren't in Little League want to go to the mall or whatever, and just teaching them to follow through on a commitment that you made from the beginning to the end. That's something. But these are all, you don't need me to tell you the things that we're supposed to be teaching these kids in Little Leagues. That's what burns my ass the most when you see something like this, because, I mean, come on, man. And all you're doing is just create. That's where each generation becomes more jaded than the one before, because the things that they saw hypocrisy, they saw the role models or the adults, their own parents, whatever it was, do things. So it just slowly, each generation, it whittles away a little bit more and a little bit more. And, everybody now up in arms about this. President Obama had him at the White House. I mean, this was a big deal. And then, stories were done, news stories around the world about this team and all of that. So it disappoints me, really. It just, more than anything else, it disappoints me because, again, what are we doing here at this level? This is not this isn't the Dodgers of Jackie Robinson. This is Jackie Robinson West Little League team, man. And there cannot be that much motive, but there is, and people get caught up. It's perspective. That's a word I love to use all the time, man, because I do understand how that kind of stuff happens. You get caught up in competitiveness, and next thing you know, you think this guy did that and cut that corner, and this guy cut that corner. And next thing you know, I understand how the slope evades away. People don't just walk and then fall off the cliff and jump. I mean, it slowly gets whittled away little by little, and then you look back and realize that you lost all perspective. These people lost all perspective. Forget the lecture, forget any of that. They just lost all perspective. At the end of the day, you coach Little League, man. You're teaching kids about baseball, but more than that, you're just teaching them about life. And anyways, that just whatever. But it's the perfect segue when we're talking about cheaters here. How about A-Rod, man? I mean, those are the two stories that most of you woke up to, at the top of your headline tickers here. This is big breaking news out of New York. A-Rod sits down for an hour and a half with the Yankees and the media, team executives, all of this stuff, to apologize for everything that he did in the past and his usage of performance-enhancing drugs and all of this, man. What he's trying to do is he's trying to salvage. He's not even trying to salvage what's left of his career. He's trying to salvage every penny that's left out of that contract, because the Yankees are not. They're not going to pay him those home run bonuses. They're going to fight those here. What is it, $6 million for the one when he gets, I think it's like 6 home runs to start the season. That's the first one that he's got coming up when he passes Willie Mays at 6 home runs, because he's at 654. Willie Mays is at 660. When he gets there, A-Rod gets another $6 million. And then every time he passes different milestones there, Yankees are like, hey, man, we're not paying it. They shouldn't. I mean, they've already paid him a whole lot of money that they shouldn't have paid him. And they owe him 61. You guys know. There we go, talking about my ass burning. I see you guys laughing in the chat room, but there, A-Rod is about the next subject that I can bring up that gets me going. But this is comical to me here, man, because you have to do this. Just like you have to, well, I'm not going to kick the kid while he's down, but you'll see number 2 is going to have some press conferences here in Cleveland and tell everybody how life has changed, man, and it's back to the good old days. Same thing here. Trying to salve whatever you can, put a little balm on it, and bring him into spring training again. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to try to get whatever you can out of this investment if you're the Yankees. And think about that, man. They got $61 million on the hook for A-Rod. Went and got Headley for $52 million to play A-Rod's position, man. So you've got 100. See, now we're going to talk about that embarrassment of riches, because you've got $114 million tied up in third baseman, one of whom can't play. So good luck there. But not that I feel bad for the Yankees, but there you go. Now start talking about what's wrong with baseball. But you can't get to talking about that, I don't know, necessarily, with the new commissioner as well. Just tying right into this, I don't know if you guys heard the other day, and we didn't really bring it up. I was kind of saving it for Mike Brandenburg, so I'll leave a little bit here and get into it later on this week. Mike Brandenburg will be with us tomorrow. But I saw Rob Manfred earlier this week. One of the things that he was talking about, besides the All-Star, which some people were like, "Hey man, hey, you mess with the come on." The tradition of the All-Star game is not all that sentimental to anybody at this point in time. If they want to alternate it like the Super Bowl, that's great. They're not going to get the kind of bidding that they think they'll get, but they will get some bidding. They'll make more money off of it than they do. They're going to monetize the All-Star game a lot more. But teams aren't going to be falling over themselves to host this thing either. You'll have a couple of teams bid every year, but it's not going to be where you've got a dozen cities going, "Hey, we'll build, full airport concourses just for you." You remember all the NFL stuff that they ask for? It won't be that high. But forget that part of it. One of the things he talked about was with the PED guys, and he was kind of wagging his finger at the voters and the media and the way they talk about the performance-enhancing guys when it comes to the Hall of Fame. He's like, well, unless they've been proven to have done something, you can't keep them out of the Hall of Fame because you think what they did or you have suspicions. No, yes, you can. Absolutely, yes, you can. And I believe that's wrong of him to say that. What it is they want that stench to go away as quickly as possible. And as long as every year all the biggest names are getting 30 at best % of the voting, and they're just getting sand kicked in their face because people just refuse to do it. So, I get where he's coming from. It's in the best interest of the game to get that log jam moving. But how do you? And I know this is the question. We've talked about it. Everybody has. How do you separate? How do you go through when every guy that you talk to says, first off, every guy that you talked to 5 years ago says they didn't do it. Then 5 years later, they go, well, I made a few mistakes. I can't. Like Brian Williams, they misspoke. Well, when I said I didn't use steroids, what I meant was I did use steroids, but I misspoke because I wanted to, respect the game. So I misspoke when I said that I had never, did you guys, off topic, here I go, but that Brian Williams, which by the way, that lie cost him $5 million, should have cost him a whole lot more. I was a news anchor, and I mean, credibility is all you got. When you talk, when I talk, I'm giving you the news. You got to know that what I'm telling you is a fact. Otherwise, why am I the guy giving you the news? But that half-cocked explanation, how do you go on TV? Well, I may have misspoken last week when I told the story that I almost died, and it turned out there was a helicopter crash. I was, a half hour behind it in a different plane, may have misremembered that, may have accidentally, in my attempt to make it sound good for other people, may have misquoted the fact that I was actually in the one that crashed, but, no big deal. What an unbelievable, the explanation, I watched it, I must have replayed it, the little clip on YouTube, a dozen times, because I'm just going, seriously, you had to show that to your bosses before you read it on TV. They signed off on that. We misspoke about things. No, you blatantly lied, man. And they suspended him for 6 months, but still, I don't know, man. That's a tough. You bold-faced told. Imagine if it had been not a news anchor. Imagine if he had just been some, worthless athlete. What I mean by I don't mean worthless. I'm calling him that. I'm saying it in sarcasm font for those of you that can't tell. What if it was just some athlete? It was just some guy, or you know what I mean? Then all of a sudden, different story. But yeah, that's nuts, man. And whatever. But going back to that there, anyways, took me totally off my subject there as I go on the rant. But, that's the topic of getting back to that. How do you start to separate who lied, who didn't? Because as I said, they all denied. Then some of them came in and admitted, and some of them said, well, I did, and I only did because everybody else wasn't. How do you tell? That's never going to be fixable. And the way I see it is that's baseball's fault. You created that problem. So don't point your finger at everybody else and tell them they need to get over it. Because to me, that's what it feels like that Rob Manfred is saying, is you need to get over it and move on if you can't prove it. And, specifically, there's a couple of names that you can point to. But it doesn't matter. This is where you go with like Greg Hardy here with the NFL and how they decide to punish him. Wasn't found guilty now of anything, but open up the court transcripts, which, by the way, the NFL says they're going to review every court transcript when they suspend him just because he was wasn't found guilty in a retrial. Doesn't mean that they won't look at that evidence. Same thing here. All you got to do is open the Mitchell report. All you got to do is go read any of the countless tales from those days that people have written in books and different endeavors that have all been verified, counter-checked, all of this. And there it is, right there. But they don't all have convictions. They don't all have bona fide legal documents in place. So it doesn't matter. But you can't point your finger. You guys did that. I know you want to fix the problem. So I don't know how you fix it. But to me, pointing your finger at the media isn't all. But anyways, this guy, I'm going to be interested to see, because early on, Rob Manfred has already shook some people up in baseball circles with some of his ideas. And I'm all about a guy that thinks outside the box. That's how sports get bigger. That's how you have to have that guy that doesn't just see things in a little narrow vision. He's got to see the big picture. Say what you want. Marketing-wise, Roger Goodell does that for the NFL. Whether he has a spine to stand behind or not is different. But that's the point. He grows the league. So maybe some of these visions will, but you hear different things he's monkeying with, and then the pitch clocks, and it'll be interesting to see, because I could see him being a guy that maybe does some good things for the game, but I could also see him being a guy that takes the game in directions that many people may have to be dragged into kicking and screaming, and maybe that's good, maybe it's not. As I said, sometimes you got to force change, but he seems like a guy who's going to be outside of the box with a lot of the things that he tries to do, whether that's good or bad. We'll find out. We'll talk. A lot of things we can do with that. We'll talk about that some more. Maybe Dan Wismar jumps in on that. Maybe we get Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com tomorrow. We'll talk some more about that. Let's talk to you guys as well. Let's get a break out of the way. First break of the show. Phones are open. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. When we come back, I mentioned it earlier, let's keep diving into the news here. Some more things going on. Browns news, and of course, you woke up this morning, so something else has to be. This one is kind of interesting, though. I'm not going to just, rail on the Browns right off the bat for this, but it is definitely an interesting dynamic here, and I didn't even realize it until I saw this morning. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll take your phone calls. We'll get Dan Wismar in on the conversation, Doug Plagens in a little bit. Whole lot to go. Sports Fix just got rocking and rolling, baby. Be a part of it. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. We'll be right back with some more Sports Fix, baby. Don't go anywhere. And hey, tell somebody else to tune in. We'll be right back.
Loud as me, cause you can do that. Think about the play and rush roulette with an automatic iPad. My ass against the line, the last bullet's first online. Never stepping and repping a run, like a weapon is wild. Peace to the brothers on bikers. Open up a trembling, blending like a chameleon. But by some guy, oh my God, I'm so high.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about, Lou? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou?
We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
The Sports Fix is on iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeart app today. Subscribe to the show and get your fix.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad.
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine. The most magnificent belt ever created. And it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Do we want to get rocked?
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you as we kick the show forward here. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. He's going to join us just about 15 minutes from now. Doug Plagens of the Lake Erie Monsters. He'll be with us just about 45 minutes from now. He'll be an hour or two. Doug Plagens doing the Monsters hockey thing. Phones are open for you to do the Sports Fix thing. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Having some fun here on a Wednesday afternoon, hump day edition of The Sports Fix. And you know what? Actually, going away from that, as I just saw this, bringing it down just a notch. Just took it up to bring it down. But just saw this as we went on the air. Jerry Tarkanian, Tark the Shark, passes away here this morning. He was the longtime Running Rebels coach at UNLV, famous for a lot of things. Famous for his victories, famous for his legal battles with the NCAA, famous for the negatives of those Running Rebels teams as well, famous for chewing on that towel on the sidelines. He's had a rough time recently. He's been in the hospital 3 times in the last 9 months. His son tweeted out just about 20 minutes ago that he passed away earlier this morning. So definitely our condolences to the family and thoughts. It's one of the greats. He's a Hall of Fame coach for college basketball, won a championship with the 1990 Running Rebels, and then lost to Duke in the Final Four with that same squad the next year in 91. Had some great teams. As I said, there was controversy for how some of those teams were put together, for the trouble some of them got into, for his jockeying back and forth with the NCAA. Matter of fact, he ended up winning almost $2.5 million? He ended up winning a lawsuit, basically accused the NCAA of blackballing him out of the league. When he retired in 2002, Tark the Shark had 729 victories, 31 years at the Division I coaching level, 12th all-time of all coaches. 19 of those seasons was where he made most of his hay at UNLV. 509 victories, 105 losses. He had that little run with the Spurs, too. Remember, didn't work out very well. And he also coached Fresno State to the NCAA tournament. Jerry Tarkanian passes away at the age of 84. All right, guys, we'll go back into the show here with that one. And J-Rocc, phone's open. I got calls in queue. I'm going to jump to the phones for you guys here in just a moment. I want to catch up on the news, as I was saying before the break. The Browns, I mean, they woke up this morning, so of course they had to be out there in something. And, those agendas, just keep in mind that they're out there as well. But, Pro Football Talk and Mary Kay, who, by the way, well, I'll tie that together at the end of this. Mary Kay Cabot, the beat writer for the Plain Dealer for the Browns, a combination here story. Mary Kay broke it first, and then it broke it. It's not this earth-shattering thing, but a lot of people making a big deal out of it this morning. The fact that the Browns, while they apparently hired Kevin O'Connell to be their quarterback coach about a week and a half back when we talked about it, have found a loophole perhaps because they never actually signed and announced officially the signing of O'Connell. Well, right now, O'Connell's still working his private job, which is as a quarterback tutor. If you remember, last year, he was the private tutor for Johnny Manziel to get him ready for the NFL draft. This year, he's doing the same job for Marcus Mariota from Oregon, the Heisman Trophy winner, the person a lot of people expect to be the first quarterback taken in the draft this year, and always been linked. I talked about it last year. For at least 2 years, I've heard from inside of the affection Ray Farmer has for the play of Mariota. Just keep that for what it is, but Ray Farmer's been kind of into that guy for a couple of years now, so that could play into this. Either way, regardless, it's a loophole in a lot of NFL circles right now, finding out about this, not happy about it, going to the NFL saying, how are the Browns able to do this? Because right now, it's a dark period for NFL teams and draft prospects. This is why it's a big deal, because you can't talk to them. Nobody can talk to them, interview them, do anything until you get to the combine and you get to pro days. And so it's just the way it goes. Right now, it's persona non grata. The teams are not allowed contact with any of the draft prospects. Now, the Browns have apparently found a loophole here, and if so, they're not doing anything illegal, but the NFL, I would expect, to quickly close that loophole like this year so that nobody can ever do this again. But what the Browns have done is by hiring O'Connell with a nudge and a wink, but not actually putting him to paper yet, he's allowed to work with Mariota here. He's allowed to be out here. He could technically do it with other guys and then sign his contract with the Browns, come work for the Browns. So technically, the Browns have their quarterback coach out here working with draft prospects while none of the other teams are allowed to interview, talk, work out, anything with the draft guys. That's why this is kind of becoming a story here today. Pro Football Talk put it out there after Mary Kay's initial article. And again, agendas is the first thing that comes up because, as you know, PFT tied in big with Lombardi and Banner. And you know what I noticed while I was looking this up? I didn't know that Mary Kay Cabot now works for Pro Football Talk. She has an actual segment. And the only reason I figured this out is because I saw they were advertising her for her Wednesday radio show that she does on their radio network. And she was on there to break down Washington and the New York Jets. And I said, wait a minute. She's not on there to talk Browns. She works for them now. How funny. Hey, take that combination wherever you want. But how funny that Mary Kay Cabot is employed in some form or fashion there by Pro Football Talk. I used to joke that if you want to know what Mary Kay Cabot's article is going to be about tomorrow, just go read Pro Football Talk today. And there you go. But that doesn't change the fact that this is something that NFL coaches and general managers are up in arms about. There have been several complaints to the NFL. I don't expect this to be a huge deal, but right now, look at the impression of the Browns right now. You've got people looking into several things. You got this texting thing, which in and of itself wouldn't be a backbreaker. These are a lot of things that by themselves, as I was saying yesterday, they're all drips of water in the bucket that by themselves you can handle. But when too many drips get in the bucket, that's when it tips over. And again, you talked about the Patriots and how the focus is on them more because everybody already thinks, well, these guys are cheating. These guys are skating the rules. So when Belichick found a loophole with the offensive linemen, people went nuts and said, oh, well, the Patriots must be cheating again. Same thing here. The Browns have a negative perception around them right now. Here's the best part. is look at how badly life has gone for the Browns since 1999. How can they be? It's just funny. If you need to get better at cheating if you're doing it. That's all I'm saying is if that's what we've been doing, we got to get better at it because we're not very good at it. That's all I'm going to say. We're not cheating very well if that's what the Browns are doing. But it is, I will say this. It's easy for a Browns fan to go, oh, well, sour grapes. I'd be pretty upset if I was another team. And if I was the Browns and another team was doing this, I'd be upset about that too, because that's technically completely violating the actual spirit of the law. That's not just a loophole. The NFL should probably close that up pretty quickly because I'll tell you what, I mean, if you were being harsh about it, I mean, I would make that ineligible. I would say, hey, if that's the situation, you can't hire that guy until 6 months after he's I don't know. There's ways that you could do that because otherwise you could bet next year every team will be hiring guys but not actually signing the contract, and every NFL prospect will have a tutor. They'll all have tutors that are hired, nudge, nudge, wink, wink by other NFL teams, and then you might as well just let everybody. It's the Wild West out there. But I do think it's funny that it came from Mary Kay and Pro Football Talk, and I had no clue. Maybe you guys did. I don't listen to other stuff. I don't even know a lot of this is out there because it's at 12 noon. Guess what? I'm at 12 noon. I couldn't tell you who's on the air, but I knew that she did a spot talking Cleveland sports. A lot of us do that. Whenever national stuff does Cleveland, they come and get somebody from Cleveland to talk. But I didn't know that she did her own thing in general about the NFL there. She's hey, whatever, man. Like I said, agendas. But this is a loophole here that's a little bit sneaky that the Browns found themselves in. We'll see, too. Look at the permutations of that. He worked with Manziel, working with Mariota here. Farmer's got a thing for him. I mean, I don't know. A lot to read into there, perhaps, as well. John McMullen was supposed to join us today, and he's still dealing with... Actually, I believe the Sports Network is being purchased by a larger entity, so there's all kinds of transitional meetings going on there. So it was like, hey, J-Rocc, if I join you, I may have to literally jump off and go into a meeting in the middle of the call. So we're going to try to get John on with us tomorrow or Friday. If not, we'll jump back into the regular thing next Monday, but we'll get some conversation about that with him. I want to see what Dan Wismar thinks, too. You know, too, off that subject, I want to ask Dan Wismar, Charles Barkley last night. I don't know if you guys were watching Hoops last night on TNT, but he had me dying when he started talking about the stat geeks and the analytics guys, and I was rolling, and I'm curious. I'm going to talk about that when we come back, see what Dan Wismar thinks. Charles Barkley, when he speaks, I either think he's a genius or an idiot. Like, there's no middle line. I'm serious. When he says something I agree with, he says it just, I go, man, that's well spoken, Charles. And then when he says something dumb, I go, man, you shouldn't have said that, Charles. But he had me rolling last night. We'll talk all kinds of stuff. We'll talk some hoops. We'll talk some Browns, Buckeyes, Indians, Cavs. Who knows where it's going. But it's always fun when Dan Wismar is with us. But before we do all that, I want to talk to you, baby. You're the voice of the Sports Fix, so use it. Go into the phones, call her. What's happening? Where you at? Who are you? And where are you from?
J-Rocc, that is. LG.
What's up, LGZ?
I got to tell you, J-Rocc, that it's uncanny you brought up that Browns article because that's exactly what I wanted to discuss with you. And,
okay.
You know, you may want to call it a loophole or they might want to call it a loophole. I call it blatant cheating because if you're in a position, if you're in a position to be somebody and you know a deal, it's premeditated is what it is. If you're a judge and you have to recuse yourself from a case because you have personal ties or some kind of a business association ties you to that case, that's what you do. Prosecuting attorneys, everybody involved in something recuses themselves from the process because they might have a personal relationship or a business tie. You got to be impartial. And if this is
you know
the
what?
case,
let me jump in, LG. Not just that, but many times people will recluse themselves from that type of situation if they see a potential conflict of interest coming in the future. There may not be one yet, but they may go, hey, I just realized that this person and this person intersect in my profession, and that may cause me a future conflict of interest. So you're absolutely right, and that's when you recuse yourself from many cases like that. I agree with you, absolutely. But go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
No, that's totally true. I mean, this is, in my opinion, okay? And I have to tell you, man, this is premeditated, J-Rocc, because the guy already knows that he will be working for the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns and this guy know what the rules are, and the rules are very clear-cut. You can't talk to anybody during the dark period. Now, that's A. Let's go to B. If this is the same guy that tutored Johnny Manziel to get him ready for the NFL, I'm not so sure that we even want him as the quarterback coach for the Cleveland Browns. And certainly Mariota himself could turn out to be another one of these guys that can't do it in the NFL.
You know what was funny? And I don't mean to take a shot, but it's the truth. It was a funny joke that I saw. When I read the article on PFT, the first comment at the time that somebody had made that I saw, the most recent comment was, and his stock just fell to a 5th-round draft pick. And I laughed because of what you just said, because now he's got Manziel's quarterback coach, who's also hired by the Browns, and when you put those two combinations together, this kid sunk before he starts. But anyways, and that's taking a cheap shot, but I mean, it's out there. But I'm with you, and I'm not trying
to... You know what? If you read that whole article, J-Rocc, some of it was talking about the Textgate scandal isn't even solved yet. And while there may not be a solid violation of NFL rules here because the guy isn't hired yet, it is premeditated. There's no ifs and buts about that. And all this could do is lead to harsher penalties for the known rules violations that the Cleveland Browns are suffering through the investigation with right now. And I got to tell you something, J-Rocc Daddy. It all goes back to the ownership of the Cleveland Browns. Jimmy Haslam III is a guy that has been very successful in his life, bending and reshaping the rules to fit his business style. He did it in the rebate scandal. As we already know, 9 top-level employees of Flying J pled out, took criminal charges to save Jimmy Haslam III from a prison sentence. I don't know if that's over and solved, if we've not heard the last of it. But if this is the kind of ownership that the Cleveland Browns are going to have, and this is the kind of example that Jimmy Haslam III wants to put out there for the world to see, J-Rocc Daddy, it's going to be punitive to the Cleveland Browns in the long run, man. There's no ifs and buts about that.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm LG. And again, I was saying before that, I'm not trying to be the guy that... I'm not putting more on the pile. I'm not trying to say, hey, look, here the Browns go again. But this one here, I mean, it's pretty clear-cut to me. And like you said, while there may not be a paper trail, I mean, to me, it's as simple as after you announce that he's hired, the NFL may make a phone call to the Browns and go, hey, what day did you make that decision? Because if there's a paper trail that shows that you guys discussed this in general before any of that, I mean, it's a bad look regardless. And I'm one of the guys that says if you're not cheating, you're not trying, as far as always pushing the envelope, that old adage, always trying to get an advantage. But that's disingenuous, and that could come back, especially if the league's already not happy with you, and they need to make examples out of people. This is not the time, in my opinion, to be wagging your finger at the NFL and trying to get away with stuff, because due to the crimes of others, the NFL is going to look to make some examples of some guys. They are, because they have to come across like they're strong-handed. They have to come across in the media like no more BS. We're not going to tolerate any of this from our players, from our executives, and the Browns are putting themselves right up there front and center to be hurt by this, man. And, you know, you need as much help as you can get. You don't need to lose draft picks. You don't need to, even as much as just having your focus on the bull crap, you don't need to waste your resources focused on stupidity. But if this is the Browns trying to get away with something slick and they end up getting their hands slapped by the NFL, then they get what they deserve because they should have known better. This is, to me, if I was Take the homer out of it. If I was another NFL team, I'd be ticked. And if I was the Browns and I watched the Steelers or some other team in the division do this, I'd be hot. I'd be like, wait a minute. Come on, man. You're stacking the deck. So just because you're a Browns guy, don't go, hey, that's not cool. Now, that being said, is it the biggest deal in the world? No, not at all. But it's still an issue because, as you said, it does kind of just speak to the culture. For that word is going to end up being the do-in finality of Ray Farmer because he beat that word culture last year. But my question, and you know what? I'm not the biggest Bud Shaw fan, but he had a great article last week in one of his editorials. He said, what exactly is the culture that you're talking about here? Because what you say and what you do have been two different things as far as the type of players that you've brought in and all of that. So there's a point there to be said. What is the culture? Because when you look at the top, if the culture is to constantly game, but you know what? I can say all that now, and when you're a bad team, it looks bad. When you win Super Bowls like the Patriots, you just look like a successful franchise. So, you know what I mean?
Well, J-Rocc, Daddy, I just tell you right now, when you have a handshake deal or a verbal agreement with somebody, it'd be like you working for a company that was, let's say today you're working for the United States government and the company you're going to go to work for is putting in a bunch of bids. Well, you had the opportunity to open the envelopes and look at those bids before you go to work for a new company. And when you go to work for that new company, you go, you know what? I happen to see 20 of the bids, and we need to adjust ours a little bit. That's an impropriety right there.
That got Martha Stewart put in the pokey, brother. Getting a phone call.
Right.
I always laugh at the joke when you watch the comedians. They go, where I come from, that's called a hookup. But it put Martha Stewart in the pokey. And I'm with you because now Kevin O'Connell can come lean over the table and go, hey, Ray, I wouldn't draft that guy. I spent 6 weeks with him, man, and there's some stuff we need to talk about. Exactly. That's insider trading, baby. You were just told to dump the stock before the stock price drops tomorrow. And like I said, that got Martha Stewart put in the pen. But LG, my man, I got to keep it moving. Great phone call, my friend.
All right, Big J-Rocc. Take care of yourself, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. That's LG from Cleveland Sports 360. My man, always a good friend of the show here. Let's take a break, get you some news, and let's get Dan Wismar in on this conversation as well. Not necessarily just this conversation, but in on the conversation. I want to talk a little bit about, as I said, Sir Charles had some funny things to say last night about analytics. I thought it was perfect because Dan and I have some mutual acquaintances that are big in the smart analytics world of sports and all of that. So we'll talk about all that, Buckeyes, Tribe, so much more. Dan Wismar, Wismar Wednesdays, baby. Coming up next here on the Sports Fix, Doug Plagens of the Lake Erie Monsters still to come as well. Don't go anywhere. Here comes some news, and Dan Wismar joins us when we come back here on The Fix.
Giving you in the trash. If you don't bum a record, I got my head band. I love fresh monkey, but I don't give the yeah. Who we got the bottle, you got the cup. Come on, everybody, let's get brass monkey. That funky monkey. Brass monkey junkie. That funky monkey. Brass monkey. That funky monkey. Brass monkey junkie. That funky monkey.
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears run at you. When attacked by a bear, simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear has finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
Hey, this is Scott Fujita, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
Today on Save on Taxes, we ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
Car seat. Oh, a pair of shoes.
The correct answer is nothing. When you use Free File, you get brand name software, tax prep, e-filing, and help with the new healthcare provisions, all for free.
So, did we win anything?
everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. They captured considerable attention last August en route to winning the U.S. Championship of the Little League World Series, but the Jackie Robinson West team was stripped of its title this morning for using ineligible players. Little League Baseball determined the Chicago-based team knowingly used a falsified boundary map to use 3 players who live outside the geographic area represented by the team. ESPN's Mark Stein and Chris Broussard are reporting that the Sacramento Kings will name George Karl their new coach after this weekend's NBA All-Star break. Hearing today on Mike and Mike, ESPN NBA analyst John Barry said Karl's a perfect fit.
He's dealt with all kinds of personalities in his time. The owner of this team is a guy that wants offense. George is an innovative guy on the offensive end.
Karl has previously coached 5 other NBA teams. 2 nights after snapping a 4-game losing streak, the Clippers try to make it 2 straight wins tonight. They host Houston 10:30 Eastern on ESPN, preceded by Miami at Cleveland at 8 Eastern. A family member says former UNLV basketball coach Jerry Tarkanian remains hospitalized in Las Vegas in very critical condition with a respiratory ailment and infection.
Sometimes it's easy to see a difference, and sometimes it's not. Valvoline Full Synthetic High Mileage with Max-like technology is different, and you can see why at seeadifference.com. Valvoline, 140 years under the hood.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live as we roll on, heading into, we're not exactly there, but we're close enough to hour 2 here as we get it moving. J-Rocc back with you. Thank you for joining us. Going to be joined by Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan here in just a moment. Always fun here. You guys keep the conversation rolling with us on Facebook, on Twitter, facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, The Sports Fix at AOL.com, and keep the conversation going, not just live, real time, but 24 hours a day with us on social media. We're going to go to the hotline. That's why you can't call. Dan Wismar's there with us now. A bunch of things to get into here. First off, let's get him up on the phone. Dan, how you doing this afternoon?
I am doing great, Jerry. Good to be with you.
Good to have you here with us as well, man. All kinds of different ways we could take this. I guess let me start where we were, before I jump into anything fresh here, what we were talking about before the break. And obviously you know the deal that we were talking about with Pro Football Talk. If you don't, the whole Kevin O'Connell working with Mariota, and doesn't he work for the Browns, and are the Browns cheating? And clearly the Browns think they're getting away with something. Whether they will or not, I don't think they'll maybe get away with it as much as they think they are. But either way, obviously there's agendas. You and I bring that up every time. Same time, I think they think they're slick, man. And you got to think that at some point or another you'll realize, man, we do keep getting caught with our hand in the cookie jar here. We may just want to play by the rules. And as I said, if we're not playing on the up and up, we need to do a better job of it because we're not exactly owning things here by not following the rules.
Yeah, you're right. The expression "too clever by half" comes to mind. Where first of all, you don't think you might think you were getting away with something. You clearly aren't getting away with it anymore.
No.
If you are complying with the letter of the rule, you certainly aren't complying with the spirit of the rule at this point. So I think they need to just take a step back, and maybe they thought, hey, we'll do this thing as long as we can, and when we can't anymore, we'll stop doing it. And I think maybe that time has come, clearly, as the media is getting a hold of it now and making an issue out of it. And, if some media person or some other team or the Steelers or Bengals or whoever has some, or the teams near the top of the draft that stand to maybe draft Marcus Mariota might be raising a stink about it, it doesn't mean that a stink shouldn't be raised about it. Clearly, like I said, if they're working in against the spirit of the rule, that's almost as bad as the letter of it. So maybe it's just time to, hands up, don't shoot. We okay. You got me. You got me. We were doing this. Yeah, we haven't signed this guy to a contract yet, or we haven't announced his signing. And maybe, obviously, this guy derives some income from his coaching and mentoring.
He may
work.
have had the commitment. Yeah.
And maybe they just said, hey, we'll let this go, and you can make as much money as you can. And when it comes time to make you an official part of the Cleveland Browns, we'll do that. Until then, cash your paychecks.
And there also, speaking of that, could be a commitment. I know that sometimes these things have to be figured out well in advance because a guy's not just going to call and say, hey, I need a coach on Tuesday. Are you available? So it could have been a situation where there may have already been a pre-existing contract or agreement here for this job, this side contracting to be done. And then it was, hey, I can't sign a contract with you until afterward. So I'm not hanging the Browns out to dry. We don't know exactly all that. But what is take other people's opinions out of it. What was your thought at first blush at that? Does it feel to you like the Browns were trying to get away with something here?
Not so much, not really.
Okay.
Because I don't think they're in a position to draft Marcus Mariota anyway.
Right.
At least it is my fervent hope that Farmer, who may or may not be the general manager come May,
next
when
week,
the draft happens. I understand that it's my understanding that he likes Mariota a lot. I think Mariota looked very ordinary in the national title game against Ohio State Buckeyes. And I was just reading this morning how his stock has dropped a little bit in terms of some of the mock drafts that we're seeing, and I think that's not a coincidence. I think a strong pass rush and hitting him a few times and containing
NFL
him in the
stuff.
pocket
NFL
did a lot
stuff,
to,
brother.
Yeah, I think that did a lot to maybe drop his stock a little bit. He looked rather ordinary. I didn't think he looked like Andrew Luck revisited in the national title game. So I think maybe his stock has dropped a little bit. Understand that the Tampa Bay Bucks are leaning towards Jameis Winston, and who knows? Maybe Mariota doesn't get picked even top 5, let alone top 1 or 2. Now, presumably the only way the Browns could possibly get Mariota, unless he drops like a rock, would be to trade up using both of their first round picks to elevate their pick.
Oh.
I would obviously hate for that to happen.
Please, no.
I might take Marcus. I might be tempted to take Mariota with 12 or with 19, but not with both combined to raise a pick. I just don't think he's that high a blue chip a prospect. Just don't.
You guys, we came on the air, and I know one game. I get it. You can't sway a whole bunch of research off of that. But what you just said, the day after the national title game, I said, look, I know Ohio State is just one game and one team, but that's pretty close to the physicality that you're going to face day in and day out at the NFL. You can say, yeah, of course it's a team game, but that gave me red alarms all over the place. I came on the air the next day and said, listen, I've changed my mind. I have no interest in going after this guy because that's Johnny Manziel all over again. And I'm not insinuating that he'll start off as bad. And I'm just saying that is I'm not even sure if he can do the job, let alone do the job well. I don't want to risk 2 first round. We got so many holes. We're going to give away draft picks and move up to get another maybe if come. No, I don't think so. You want to get an if come, go find one later in the draft or something, which there's not a lot of, by the way. We haven't even started talking about it. Not a whole bunch of prospects in this one, even for developmental type guys later. So I don't even know what, for all these Browns fans going, yeah, dump everybody, find new quarterbacks. There's not a truckload of new quarterbacks out there this offseason.
Yeah, you're right. And most of the consensus is that, after Jameis Winston and possibly Mariota, that it's not a very good draft for quarterbacks.
Oh.
And I think, the Browns, what is the point of having 2 first-round picks if you don't come away from the draft with 2 players? Now, obviously, we hope we get 2 players that contribute to our team, unlike last time we had 2 first-round picks. But, your point also about the whole Kevin O'Connell thing and the Browns needing to watch their P's and Q's. Already, of course, they're under the microscope and looking at certain penalties for Textgate, among other things. But you're so right that the NFL is looking. It reminds me, the NFL right now, they're so mad at the Patriots, they're just likely to crush the Browns.
Yes, yes.
And that reminds me of 4 years ago when the NCAA was so mad at Cecil Newton and Auburn University, they decided to suspend four Buckeyes for trading jerseys for tattoos. You're always looking for a scapegoat when you got the sacred cow up there that can't be touched. And goodness knows we suspend Cam Newton for 1 game and then reinstate him the next day because, geez, the SEC title game's this Saturday. We can't do anything with that. And they got to play in the national title game a couple of weeks from now. So, we can't let anything happen there. So let's land on these Buckeye players and really show them we mean business. Same theories in place here that, Patriots just win the Super Bowl. There was all this Deflategate stuff going on, and so we got to look like we're in charge, and we're dealing with wrongdoing. So, we're going to land on, the hapless Cleveland Browns.
And it's just Cleveland is what they can tell themselves, and they can go, nobody's, whatever, it'll blow. I hear you, man. I hear you. And you know what? Along that, now let me ask you the other thing that I brought up. And you're in the media, you're also in Cleveland, and you're a perfect guy to ask about this. I get making your money and doing your thing and all of that. I have no problem with people working for multiple outlets, but man, looking at, and I really did not even realize that Mary Kay Cabot had an actual working business relationship as part of the Pro Football Talk team, which when you're the beat writer, I get being a guest. I get being the, hey, what's going on in Cleveland this week, Mary Kay. But when you're legitimately working for an outlet like that, and we know you can't point it out, but what do we say every time a Pro Football Talk article comes out? Well, you know where it came from. It came from Lombardi. It came from Banner. They got these sources, and we know how that works. So it just kind of, it makes me scratch my head because beat writer for a newspaper of a team is not supposed to have, I'm not saying they don't have opinions, but they're really not being paid to give their opinions. They're being paid to report the ins and outs, the comings and goings, whatever they know and can pass on about the team. And to me, it's a pretty down the middle job description, maybe a little bit of opinion colored in, but when you realize that you're in circles with people that have axes to grind against the organization that you're supposed to neutrally cover, man, that leaves me scratching my head and going, this is a weird situation, I guess. What do you think about that?
Well, I guess I look at it a little bit differently because these guys, these journalists, it's a different world today with the internet and the newspapers. Even like, and I'll just use the example of the guys that cover Ohio State for the Plain Dealer, Doug Lameries and Ari Wasserman. These are guys that I know. These guys have been good to me, and so I'm not going to even claim to be impartial about it. Yeah. But when they talk about their employer is an organization called Northeast Ohio Media Group.
Yep.
Because they write for the Plain Dealer. They also write for Cleveland.com. And yes, they're affiliated, but they're not exactly the same thing. And Ari also works for BuckeyeSports.com, which is affiliated with Scout.com, which is an entirely different entity. And these guys are free agents, to a certain degree. They can affiliate themselves. And that might mean, Jerry, that they're writing one column a week for FoxSports.com, or they're writing one column a week, or they're acting as a moderator on the message boards at BuckeyeSports.com. So, and whatever, compensation they draw from that is separate from what they draw from the Plain Dealer versus maybe Northeast Ohio Media Group or whatever. So these affiliations often amount to no more than, okay, we're going to put your byline on one of your articles and put it on our website, and we want 800 words a week from you on the topic of your particular specialty. So, and the other thing is trying to separate opinion from straight reporting journalism. I don't know that you can even do that anymore. I mean, what column do you see in a newspaper where you don't have some, bias built into it, or some opinion expressed in the column, or at least, put a little bit of yourself into the column as opposed to straight nuts and bolts reporting. So I don't know. I don't think there's a conflict of interest there. And plus the fact that I don't begrudge these reporters the opportunity to turn a buck any way they can by writing copy and having it appear on the web or in print or in other forums in the media, wherever they can make that happen.
Oh, I don't either. Let me be straight about that. I'm all about making the money, and trust me, I get it. Side gigs abound. I've got a ton of them too. No. My thing more was there's already the joke on Twitter is that, like I said, if you want to know what Mary Kay is going to report tomorrow, go see what Pro Football Talk is reporting today. But there's always been the, at least recently especially, the feeling that some of, particularly her being the beat writer, that's why I use her as an example here, of a certain agenda in the things that she does and where she gets her sources. And I thought, boy, that just really ties that together there and just brings it out more, because you get to the point where and that was more where I was going, is when your beat writer is potentially working a certain agenda in their reporting, that to me, that's no good, because now your main source of information for the average fan is leading in certain directions, and
yeah, that's true. And we've talked about how Locke, for example,
right?
You can, when he writes something, you can tell it's straight from Banner and Lombardi, who are in fact disgruntled former Browns employees with an axe to grind, perhaps. Not perhaps, they do.
For sure,
And it goes the other way too. So certain fans or readers or consumers of media, they're not happy either way. They're not happy if you throw your opinion or some agenda into your writing, and they're also not happy if you don't. And the guys I'm thinking about is like a Doug Lamery, who I think is a great reporter, and Doug isn't from here. He's not from Cleveland, and so he's hired as a professional journalist from outside the area. And so he writes about the Buckeyes with a certain detachment. He asks the hard questions. He writes the tough articles. He plays it straight. And a lot of Buckeye fans just don't like that one bit. You're not enough of a homer. I think Bruce Hooley, gets some of the same criticism because he's down the line. He's middle of the road, and he's not a homer. He's not a honk. And the Buckeye fans don't go for that. They want honks right for him.
Everything that we put out there, Dan,
they really can't win because if they've got an agenda or an angle or a bias, then they get criticized for that. And same thing if they don't.
No, I get it. You can't win. I mean, now I'm a little bit unique because I'm specifically, and I make it very clear, I'm talk radio. I'm not your news source. I'll give you the news, but I mean, I'm not your news anchor. I'm giving you my opinion on stuff, and that's a little bit of a different thing. But I get it all the time. You can't win either way. If I post something and it's positive, let's just use the Browns since we're talking about them. If it's positive towards the Browns, I'm a homer and I'm just telling whatever the team wants me to tell. But then if I'm too negative, then the whole other half of the fan base goes, well, you're just a Browns hater. You've got to support the team. You've got, so you can't go right either way it goes. You're either being too easy on them or you're being too hard on them. There's no middle ground,
Yeah, that's true. And of course, you're a reader, you're a fan. Everybody has the right to their own opinion, and of course now with social media, not only does everybody have their opinion, but everybody's got a podium and a megaphone.
Yes,
so
sir.
It makes it interesting, but it doesn't always allow for a whole lot of sanity, let alone balance or something.
I tell you, let's segue right there into something else I wanted to bring up. While we're laughing about stuff, we're talking about segueing into keeping your sanity. It's something funny here. I don't know. It was late night last night. I don't know how late you stay up. I was watching Inside the NBA after the late game last night, and sometimes I can dig it. They're pretty funny. Sometimes they grate me a little bit. But Charles Barkley last night had me dying because the general manager of the Rockets took a shot at him on Twitter. Just doesn't like him because Barkley's always railing against the Rockets. So Daryl Morey was like, something about Charles Barkley's. He's going to speak tonight with vitriol that he disguises as entertainment or something like that. And Charles goes off, but he had me rolling. And this is where I bring it in with you. He starts hitting on the smart analytic guys, the sports analytics guys, man. And he's like, he just went to town about how those guys made a place for themselves in sports because they could never play sports, but since they were smart, they made a seat at the table, created all these hocus pocus statistics because they never could actually play, and they couldn't get girlfriends either, by the way.
Yeah, they never got the girls in high school. Yeah, I saw that.
I was dying watching it, dude. It was hilarious, man.
I do love Charles Barkley, and in fact, I don't know if you were watching the Lakers Cavs game the other night when he had me laughing at the end of the third quarter. The Cavs are up by 30, and he could see both coaches emptying their benches. And he basically said this could be the longest quarter in NBA history, and he was so right. It was really an ugly quarter. I think the Cavs scored a dozen points or something, and obviously ended up winning going away. But he was so right. He says what he thinks, but yeah, you're right. And it made me think of basically what he said was, in a nutshell, analytics are crap.
Yeah,
basically, and he used that exact word. And maybe, just maybe, in basketball, maybe analytics are more crap than they are maybe somewhere else. And the only point he's making is the teams that have the best players are going to win because they're better players. And people were talking about that last night on the occasion of Popovich's 1,000th NBA win. Here's a guy that won the Spurs win the lottery twice. They get David Robinson, then they get Tim Duncan. And Tim Duncan's been around for like 929 of those 1,000 wins.
929. Yep.
It has a lot to do with Popovich's record. Obviously, he's a great coach. Can't take that away from him. Everybody admires the guy. But let's face it, you've got great players on your team, and that goes a long way. So, and because it's 5 guys playing at a time, maybe the analytics. I think one of the biggest nonsense statistics in basketball is this plus or minus, score while you're on the court. It's so deceptive and so deceiving, and like there's not 4 other players on the court with you, and there's not like 5 guys playing against you on the other side. So I don't know. Right. It just seems to me one of the more meaningless and easily distorted stats that you go with. But what the whole thing made me think about, Jerry, was last year when we were talking about analytics with regard to baseball, and I've got friends, Cleveland fan guys, Alcha McKella, among others, who are big into it, and I must admit that I'm not as into it because I'm just not as knowledgeable about it as these guys are, and certainly I don't deny the validity of it. But when I hear some things, and I'm not sure who it was, one of your other guests that talks baseball and talks Indians was talking last year about Michael Brantley and how Michael Brantley was according to all the computers, he was an average to below average left fielder. Yeah, and I'm saying if that's what the computers say, then the computers are crap. Yep. Because I've been around the game a little while. I've been a fan for 50 years. I've played the game. I've coached the game. And Michael Brantley, with 1 error in 2 full seasons, and leading the league or among the league leaders constantly in outfield assists, rocket arm, great range. Goes and gets the ball, average. Never does anything. If this guy's an average left fielder, then I'm a ballerina, and I don't think I look good in a tutu. So I'm sorry. It's just those statistics can be crap when they say things like that. What are you going to believe, the computer or your own freaking eyes? You know?
Yeah, Mike Brandenberry's the one that brought that up about Brantley being low in the defensive zone ratings, and I'm like, he's above
and he was
average.
It's not Mike saying that. It's just
he's telling you the
what
stats.
The computers say, you know?
Exactly.
And I'm just saying, nothing against him. It's just, hey man,
you're right.
I watch baseball. I know baseball, and you're not going to sit here and tell me that my own eyes are deceiving me when I watch the guy play left field.
Brother, I've played too. That's where I come from with this. Is I say, look, man. I get some of them. Every once in a while, you'll show me one that I go, okay, that kind of makes sense. Most of them, to me, are empty stats. Anybody can come up with statistics to back up any argument that you feel like making if you put numbers together in a certain way. And I know that people make their livings doing this, and some of them have even had girlfriends, but they're not. I do agree with the sentiment a lot of that being hocus pocus. Like Barkley brought up baseball. He said they say that same crap in baseball. They put these little lightweight teams together, and they never win. They're competitive for a little bit, but they never win. Same in the NBA. And at the end of the day, that's the argument that I make about Moneyball too, is you can show me, great, it gives us more bites at the apple than everybody else, but at the end of the day, you don't win them either. We don't win them, you don't win them, most of the small markets don't, and that's the end reality of it. But yeah, I'm with you. Some of them, you can show them to me and go, hey, this stat, and I go, man, I get it. I see where you're coming from. That's actually a good stat. But like I said, most of them to me, and plus minus, like you brought up, is a great one because you could have a huge plus minus if you're at the back end of a blowout on the losing team. If you happen to be in the last 2 minutes of every quarter when your team just happens to outscore the other team by 5 points each time, even though your team got blown out by 20, you could have a plus 20 at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's true. And it's the same thing when you look at football and combines, quote-unquote measurables. As long as you're looking at measurables and how good the broad jump is for the guy as one component of your evaluation of that guy. And that's teams and certain general managers and certain teams are known to be, just combine heavy, measurables heavy. They think everything gets down to that. And your 40 time or your shuttle time or whatever, as long as you're using that, sanely as, one out of a number of different, ways that you're measuring a player's potential, fine. But heart is not a measurable, and football IQ is not a measurable, and effort is not a measurable. So all those things, as long as you're keeping it balanced and keep he did this, and this at the combine, but 35 reps at 225 in the bench doesn't make you a great offensive lineman. It makes you a strong guy.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And here's just one example in the basketball side of things. When you look at as you said, we look at plus minus and different things like that, man, is okay, here's a good one that a lot of the analytics guys show. And I get it, because when I saw the percentage, I said, okay, I understand that. But you can't tell me that a professional basketball lifer couldn't have figured that out without the percentages. When they show you the reason why they don't like teams taking long two-pointers, because literally the percentage in that extra 1.5 feet between stepping back behind the three-point line, it's actually higher than people that are just a 1.5 feet closer to the hoop and shooting the two. So they encourage guys, well, if you're going to shoot the 15-footer anyway, you might as well step back a little bit and shoot the three-pointer. You'll shoot the same percentage, but you add a point every time that you make it. And I get that, but you can't tell me that a basketball lifer can't figure that out himself without the stat and go, hey, you hit just as many from 15 as you do from behind the three, so you might as well just shoot them all from behind the three. I'm positive that coaches have told players that every day for years. It's never changed, but somebody put a stat to it and created a statistic.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, take a step back and get 50% more points. I get it. And like you say, I didn't need the computer to tell me that.
Yeah.
Now, it's nice if you can track those things and you can actually have some performance metrics for individual players that say, this guy, it might be worth taking a step back. This guy over here, maybe not so much, because here's his track record of shooting those shots over a long period of time. and whether those shots are contested versus not contested, and all those things play into it. But it's you're right that a lot of things are common sense, and we didn't need a computer to tell us. But obviously, now that we have those things, it becomes what? It becomes one more tool that we can use, not the tool. And that's, I guess, the point I'm making.
Yeah,
it's
in the toolbox.
Don't put all your stock in it. Put a little bit of stock in it. Make it be one of the things you use to make decisions, not the thing you use.
That's it. Like, I think if you get a former player with great instincts for the game and combine him with some of those analytics where he can look outside the box, but he still knows how to see it from the right perspective on the floor, then yeah, absolutely, man. You know, and that's
there's lots of things, and the same thing is true with the use of film. Broadcasters and guys that are in media. One thing that's very humbling if you're doing stuff like this, one thing that's humbling for me is to occasionally, listen to the tape of the show after I do it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I sound like.
I do that too.
You learn about things. You learn about little personal, tics, verbal tics that you might happen to have, or things that you do that you'd rather do without, or you weren't even conscious of. Players do the same thing watching film. Boy, I didn't know I had that little hitch in my swing, and you can learn from it. But it just becomes one more tool in the tool bag, as long as you don't put, let it give you one more thing to think about. That if you're a golfer, they talk about swing thoughts. I'm going to concentrate on keeping my grip loose and my head down and my hips square and this and that. And you can obviously overthink it. A lot of times, just go up there, see ball, hit ball. If you're talking about, baseball, and don't make it too complicated. So it's always a balance between being, self-critical and being a Trevor Bauer type guy who's crazy analytical about his own performances, and then keeping that somehow in balance with just going out there and letting your natural athletic instincts take over and play the game like you've always played it.
So funny that you mentioned that about listening back to the show. I almost told this story at the beginning of the show, and I said, no, I'm not even going to point it out, because then they're going to start doing this, and they're going to start coming back at me with the numbers. But I do that every day. I listen, I break it down, and I break it down. Trust me, I don't sit here and high-five myself, you guys. I'm incredibly harsh on myself. Yesterday, I learned that in the first segment of the show, I think I used the word anyways about 150 times more than you should have used the word anyways. I heard myself. It was a crutch word yesterday. You get those sometimes, and becomes one for me. But I listened back, and by about the 10th anyways in 30 seconds, I wanted to punch myself through the computer. I'm like, anytime now. You could stop. You could stop. Well, there you go again. Anyways, I just did it. See? That's what I did. It's a crutch word. We all have them. Yesterday, I just happened to notice that I used it a lot in a short period of time. Funny that you brought that up, because I do that every day.
I know that if you listen, you pay attention to, let's just say ESPN, because they're the most prominent example of sportscasting on television, how many people, and it's typical of ex-athletes, and they'll ask a guy a question, and you want to think about how many times the guy's response or his monologue, whatever he's going into, begins with these words. When you talk about...
Yes.
That's what they say. They ask him about Clayton Kershaw, and the response is, well, when you talk about Clayton Kershaw, you have to start with this and that. And it's a good, without having to really come up with anything coherent in terms of a sentence or whatever. If you start everything you say with when you talk about or when you think about, you can change it up a little bit. But if you pay attention to how many times these guys begin their conversation with those exact words, when you talk about, when you think about, it's amazing how overused that expression is. And it's just something that over a long period of time I just noticed about how these guys do it. And that's especially, I guess, prevalent of the guys that maybe are not professional broadcasters, but are rather former athletes in suits and ties.
Well, you know what, too? It's like they say, minimize your weaknesses and show your strengths. Those guys are in little small sound bites and small 2 and 3 minute takes. Man, I listen to the show, and the longer you're out there doing something, you get exposed. Just like they say, when a guy plays 4 games, he can look like a Hall of Famer. He plays all 16, and all of a sudden you realize why he was on the practice squad. And same thing there. The more you're exposed, the more that hangs out there. And since it's it's a couple hours, 5 days a week of straight talk radio, I find all the warts and the glaring mistake, just the things that drive me crazy about my own voice and the way that I repeat certain things. So that's why you guys will constantly hear me I'll throw a different word, I don't care. Anything I can do to make it sound different than yesterday, because you're doing it every day, and that's an art that you have to work with, and I work on it every single day. But I laughed because you brought that up, and I almost opened my show going, well, guys, yesterday you win if you can tell me how many times I said anyways in the first 5 minutes of the show, because it drove me nuts listening back to it. And talking real quick about analytics, the NBA, they go nuts with it, though. Have you heard, forget this, just the analytics, about the analyzation where they use the microchips in the balls and the uniforms and the different cameras that they've got, where they're able, computerized, to measure after live real time and after every game, every amount of energy you exerted as a player. They could watch 1 through 5, where you were at every minute on the court. They can track where you were, how fast you ran from one end to the other, when you were at your most tired, when you were at your strengths, and then they take all of that and overlay it on top of your performance to see what matches up. But I mean, that's some big brother stuff right there. The GM literally knows how much effort, how much running back and forth, what speeds you were on during the game. That's a deep level of analytics there.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm curious about it. Do they? Is it from tracking it from the television feed by attaching a tracker to you on the video, or is it something that they're physically putting on the player?
You know what? I'll pull something up here and try to get clarified. I believe it's like a microchip in the balls, in the jerseys. I'm pulling it up here as we go. It's
that'd be interesting to find out. I had not heard about
here.
that, and obviously it's taken analytics to the
a whole new level.
You know, they used to just put microphones on players, and now they're putting
here's what it is.
Other sensors on them. That's quite.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't cutting you off. Go ahead. Here's the current method that they've got, and they are going to try to go into the microchips here and more with that. They started it 2 years ago. Last season. This season is now the second one, and the first they tried it last year. It tried it in half the arenas. Now it's in all of the arenas. And you can get into this stuff as fans, and then the teams have their own version of it as well. But you can actually go in, I think it's right through the NBA.com. You can actually go as a fan and track this same stuff. They use the various cameras. They've got 6 specific cameras placed in the catwalks at every arena. They track the ball, the players, the separation. They track every movement on the court. They update it in real time throughout the game, and then they feed all the data to like all their storage systems so the teams can use it. And some of the things that they collect that they can now tell you for every game, they collect the speed, distance, average speed, and average distance traveled by each player per game. The speed you ran, the distance you covered, the number of touches, obviously, and points per touch, the number of passes, assists, all of the regular statistics. It tracks defensively, not just the standard statistics, but also anytime a defender is defended within 5 feet of the basket, anytime a defender comes within 5 feet of the shooter, different rebounding vicinities away from the basket, where the drives start, the catch and shoots, the pull-ups, all of the different statistics that you get when they break down those advanced metrics. But to me, the most interesting is the speed and the distance and those kind of things, man, as they keep track of the energy exerted. And like I said, that's what the fans can keep track of. And then there's even a deeper set of that the general managers have at their disposal. And the plan is, as I said, to involve the microchip technology in the next few seasons, and then literally get that where you could tell a guy, I'm willing to bet within 5 years, a general manager will be able to sit at his laptop during a game and know the heartbeat of a player, his pulse, any of that stuff that he may need to know, I bet you they'll have it right on hand within 5 years. But isn't that that's some interesting stuff where they're taking it in the NBA?
Yeah, it is. It sounds like they're doing it all with video and then computer analysis of the video, as opposed to having any kind of sensor or chip or something attached physically to the player. But certainly, it sounds like that next step might not be too far off, like you suggest.
Yeah, I think it's interesting there, and the fact that fans can get on there and track that too, man. You can, I dig that, man, and they're continuing to make it real time, so you can actually be on there during the game. That's where guys get those weird stats. Like eventually, you'll see it. LeBron James traveled 17 miles during today's basketball game. Back and forth when they get it, and that's where you're going too far. But if you're a general manager, you would disagree and say not far enough. Then again, Charles Barkley would call you an idiot. So I just thought it'd be fun to talk to you about that because you and I both know Al and a lot of guys like that, and Mike Brandenberry, some of his guys big on those Moneyball analytics too. I like it just like you. I like it as a piece of the toolbox. One of the many tools that you use to do your job. I think you run into trouble when you make it your entire toolbox. When that's all you're using, you're done because you don't have any actual insight to the game. You're just looking at numbers on paper, and numbers on paper never work out.
That's true, and Billy Beane, can count his, World Series rings on, let's say, one hand, shall we?
He's got as many as John Hart,
That's right.
So do what you got to do over there with that. Now he's losing his mind as you watch it now. He's melting down. He's like, man, I got to start all over again, rip it apart. We'll do this thing again. So the cycle of violence has begun again over there in Oakland. But anyway,
you do what you can when you're in a small market, and
we know.
Hats off to Billy Beane. He's obviously had great success at least up until October. When his success hasn't been quite so great, but tip of the hat to him because he does it on a shoestring budget and continually cranks out players that are well developed, and he obviously drafts and develops pitchers as well as anybody.
I mean, I got to tell you, man, I get to the point like fans too where you could say you get a shot at it every year, but if you really feel like that's all you get is a shot at it and you don't finish it, I can see where that gets frustrating too. But I'd like to have that problem. But eventually, when you have that problem long enough, like that, it is a problem. Real quick, talk about a slow news day. It pops. My phone gets different updates as we're going, and it's a slow news day when I get an update that says charges dismissed against Model Urinator. So that's the kind of news day we're having. It's on the top 10 of ESPN's news stories right now. But
that's right. I also noticed that your news break over the
they were
over
wrong.
The break earlier didn't quite have the Tarkanian news right up to the minute either.
Well, because you got to understand, I dropped that. I get it at the last feed, which is right before we go on the air, and it was right around that time that the news changed from gravely ill
Oh, yeah,
to
I know.
passed away.
It was just announced this morning. That's not faulting you for that. I did have a chance to look at a couple of Tark the Shark articles, and I was surprised to see, and I remembered, of course, Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and Greg Anthony and those guys. I didn't realize that on that team, that 90-91 championship team for Tark, that he had 4 first-round NBA draft choices on that team and 1 second-round pick starting that year. Three of the first-rounders were all in 1 year. 3 of the first and 1 second. That would have been Johnson, Augmon, and Greg Anthony, of course. Yeah. And then he had a guy named George Ackles, who I don't really remember, who was a second-round pick, and then the next year, Elmore Spencer from that team was also drafted in the first round. But, pretty remarkable, and that was a great team. And some of those games, the Duke game, of course, was a great game the following year, and some of the great games between him and like Houston, if I recall, and some of the other big-time games they had. That was they were about as athletic a team as you'll ever see, and fun to watch.
If I remember right, and I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but weren't those the two games with UNLV and Duke in 90 and 91 tournaments, weren't they reverse blowouts? Didn't UNLV blow them out the year before, and then the next year Duke just wiped the floor with them in the semifinals?
Actually, the Final Four, I see here on the 90-91 running Rebels. The Duke win in the Final Four was a 2-point game.
Okay.
79-77. So I'm not sure about the other game the following year. May have been more of a blowout, but that at least was a 2-point game in the Final Four that year.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up, but I think if I remember right, Duke handled them in the one and beat them, as you said, close. And yeah, I see the other one there because that was the year that they went on the run. UNLV won every game.
Went into the tournament unbeaten,
off, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And people forget about that. Those three that you list, all NBA players at different levels, with Greg Anthony, Stacey Augmon, of course, Grandmama, Larry Johnson, and
right.
You know,
first player taken, Larry Johnson. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I loved Larry Johnson. See, that's my getting into my starting to become a teenager, and you know, the Hornets were big to me just because of I like their colors. I'm not gonna lie, I was a kid, man. I liked the teal, but I thought they had a snazzy mascot for the time, and so that's what got me paying attention. And then they drafted Larry Johnson, and I thought UNLV was tough, man. I mean, I was a kid. That applied to you. You got the rock star coach, and UNLV. They're in Vegas. The running Rebels. They were rock stars for a couple of years there, and that's what got a little heat there with Tark and the NCAA. And then I thought for sure. I remember when he went to the Spurs, he washed out quick, but. That was when I had my first experience with just because somebody's good at one level of something doesn't mean it's going to work out at the next. That was when I go, oh, well, how did that work? Like, he was great and not so great in the NBA.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think maybe in basketball it might even be a more pronounced difference between the college game and the pro game than maybe in some of the other sports it would be. And obviously, baseball, a little bit of a unique situation. There's so many years between college and pro for most players go through several minor league seasons. But the difference, you look at a Krzyzewski or whatever and guys like that, the way to be successful in the college game is pretty different from what you have to do to manage and coach essentially 13 millionaires at the NBA level. A whole different skill set, I think, between the college game and the pro game. It's just because you're good at one, not necessarily at the other, where I think maybe the differences in football, college to pro, is probably not that big a jump.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I just figured out. I was right, and I was just recollecting it wrong. It was when UNLV won their championship in 90. They rolled Duke by 30, if you remember. 103-73.
Okay.
Just ran them out of the gym. Then ran off the undefeated season the next year. Met Duke, and that's when Duke knocked them off in the upset at the end after getting blown out the year. I remembered the blowout because it wasn't even close, and I just remember going, wow, man. And,
right, yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah, it's just... one by one. And how about the coincidental timing of the same week as Dean Smith? Those are contemporaries. Different, too. Completely different in styles, in coaching mannerisms, in everything, and all of that. But two of the greats of their era and of different time periods there passed away in the same week.
Yeah, that is kind of strange that they at least were looked at as being polar opposites in terms of the styles and the reputations. Good guy, bad guy, really. It's white hat, black hat, even though the more you learn about Dean Smith, the more you learn about the hat might not have been quite so white. But, he certainly always had that rep as the good guy, and the Tark always was looked at as sort of the, in keeping with his rebels out there in Vegas and everything that goes, encompasses Las Vegas as a city and as a school.
He reveled in his role as the evil empire there, as you said, compared to the Dean Smith types on the other side, man. And I didn't even know until I was researching this morning. I totally forgot that he won that lawsuit against the NCAA. He won almost $3 million from them. He basically said, "Hey, they ran me out of the game."
Yeah, and I had really forgotten about that too, and didn't really recall that he, had such a large settlement when that happened. And I guess he was able to, prove in court that that's exactly what they did do, that they didn't want him being associated with them for whatever reasons. And tainted as he was maybe by reputation, if not reality. And they court awarded him $2.5 million, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say you think you're getting away with something, but then you find out that you may not have gotten away with it after all. Remember baseball? I was a kid. I didn't even know what it meant when I heard in the news about collusion and lawsuits and all that. Now that I look back and I know, I realize, man, how did y'all think you were going to get away with agreeing? Hey, we're going to keep salaries down. We're not going to sign these guys. We're all going to agree on this, right? Eventually it came out. It just ended up costing you all kinds of stuff. But, yeah, anyways, $2.5 million. It was actually a settlement back in 1998, the lawsuit. So he didn't actually win it. The NCAA said, you know what? We're just going to get this crazy old guy out of our hair. We're going to give him a couple $1 million to go away. But, again, condolences to him. And I just thought, ironic, too, both of them here in the same week. While we're talking college hoops, let's get to the here and now. Buckeyes, they've got one coming up here with Penn State. You got to love the headline. Speaking of the guys that cover Ohio State for Cleveland.com, Ari Wasserman, you got to love the headline. It's scary for my opponents as Ohio State freshman D'Angelo Russell continues to get going. He had the triple-double the other day. First one in the Big Ten in a couple of years since I think it was Draymond Green was the last one to have one. Buckeyes up and down. We've seen, even with that triple-double they lost the other day, Buckeyes still continue to be inconsistent throughout the season.
Yeah, they have, and it really just comes with the youth on the team. Yep. And then, in this day and age, youth on a college basketball team is no longer an excuse because everybody's doing it with one-and-dones, and Kentucky's young every year, and they're 24-0. So it's not really a legitimate excuse of, well, we got a really young team, but in reality, it keeps you from winning basketball games a lot of times. If you're not Kentucky and if you're not bringing in five-star players every year to take a quick stop in Lexington on their way to the NBA. But the Buckeyes are young, and they're going to get younger because Russell's going to leave. That doesn't make them younger, but they've got they're graduating Shannon Scott and Amir Williams, and they're going to be bringing in 4, I think maybe even 5 new guys next year in the recruiting class. Lots of talent coming in, but they're still going to be awful green. I think they're going to be more talented next year. But, Russell continues to be all Big Ten, and I've been hearing lots of All-America talk here lately. And like we talked about Monday, still all kinds of NBA lottery kind of talk as we hear his name associated with first about the top 10, then the top 6. I heard number 2 the other day thrown out as a possibility. So hard to it's going to be hard to keep him down on the farm once they've seen Gay Perry. They say I think once he realizes how much he's going to be worth in this the draft this summer, that he's as good as gone. And I still think the Buckeyes are going to be a tough out in the tournament. They're going to have their 20 wins and keep modest streak going. I think they only need 2 more wins to get to 20, and they'll finish up certainly in the top half of the Big Ten and are pretty much a lock to make the NCAA tournament. And I wouldn't want to be playing them in that first round because they're so athletic, and they might be young, but they'll be a month more experienced than they are right about now when the tournament rolls around, and I think they might be dangerous come tourney time.
Yep. I'll tell you what, talking about what I was saying when I started, when I say the inconsistency, you pointed out to the youth, that's just it. You could just look at the last month even of just games for the Buckeyes. Every time they get a little momentum going, they can get a 2-game or a 3-game winning streak going, then there's a stumble, and then they get a couple more. I mean, really, the path is up and down. You look at, ever since you dropped one back in early January to Indiana, come back and win one, lose one with Iowa. That was kind of a tough week there. Then you get things going, win a couple in a row, stumble at Purdue. You get that win over Rutgers. You got Penn State tonight. Then you've got Michigan State and Michigan on the road, both of them coming up this weekend. Also, talking about that, probably Michigan State, apparently, according to Coach Mata, perhaps Mark Loving returns. Is there any more clarification on that?
I haven't gotten any further clarification on it. They've been very hush-hush about it. Even the guys that are normally very clued in and connected to the program have not been able to come up with anything definitive about what the story is there. The fact that he's been practicing with the team is encouraging. but this will be tonight will be the third game that he's missed, and they certainly have missed him. Certainly, I think they would have, won the previous game to the Rutgers game. And the thing that's amazing about the Big Ten, it really is pretty balanced. I mean, Rutgers here has lost about 9 games in a row in the conference, but they beat Wisconsin. So I'm trying to figure out how
that's
that
the one
team that
conference
the
loss
blew out the other night managed to beat Wisconsin. But it is pretty balanced, and a lot of teams bunched up behind Wisconsin in the standings. And but as far as Loving goes, I'm sure hoping he is back. The Buckeyes have some real tough games down the stretch here, like you say, Michigan State, and they finished the Big Ten season with Wisconsin. So tough going down the stretch and into the Big Ten tournament. But getting Loving back will be a big part of it because he's really started to become really the second best offensive force on the team, and he plays a pretty solid defense too, and is just a good all-around ball player who's starting to really come into his own as a sophomore.
And good point there, too, about Rutgers. They're 2-10 in the Big Ten, and one of those two is the only conference loss for Wisconsin so far this season. So make sense out of that one, But you've got to, and up at the top, you bring it up, too. It's a lot of, 6 games separates the top 6 teams, basically. And Michigan State, Indiana, Ohio State, Maryland, all in that pack chasing Wisconsin. Buckeyes are 4 back of Wisconsin here, but a lot of parity. And I'm with you as far as looking ahead to tournament time and seeing where seeding's going to be very interested this year to see where teams. Hey, Cleveland State, I say the same thing. I was talking to some guys after my game last night. I said they were Vikings fans, and you don't always run into Vikings fans everywhere. So I was up for a good Vikings chat, and I said, man, I just talked about it on the show. I can see the Vikes being that 13 seed, 12 seed, somewhere in that area that bites one of those first-round opponents and then goes on to the second round. I'm not saying they go further than that, but I think they win one and scare the heck out of somebody else before they're done. Certain teams, there's certain teams that are successful just because of the styles that they play, and I can see the Vikes being that team. They're going to end up, unless they just collapse down the tournament and everything, they're going to end up, I would say 13 is a good guess for what kind of seeding they end up with, 12 maybe. And as you know, that 13-4, 12-5, that's the favorite for the upsets, and I see the Vikes being one of those teams this year. I don't know how much you've seen of them, but do you have any? Have you seen them at all?
Just a couple of times. I haven't really paid a lot of attention. I catch them once in a while. I caught a little bit of that Wright State game the other night, and they look like a team that could be dangerous come tournament time, at least in that first round. And nobody wants to play a team that's that scrappy and that quick and that athletic. It's just you can scare the heck out of one of the big boys. I frankly don't like the Badgers' chances in the tournament either. I just think they're susceptible to a maybe slightly smaller, more athletic team. But Cleveland State certainly could be that kind of a team that could give somebody fits in March.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. This is getting close to it's it. I said at the beginning of the show. All right, we worked our way through, and we did a good job, by the way, today. And we didn't even have to beat up on the Browns too much or anything. We just kept it moving. But this week, next week, this kind of 2-week period here, and All-Star break for baseball. Those are your 2 low depths of the sports talk universe, if you will, man. And good job here. We got through it. Another good conversation. It wasn't even that painful. We kind of worked the gamut. And I do enjoy slower weeks for that. I know there's so much impatience. Like, oh, yeah, talk about the Browns. Who are they going to draft? We got plenty of time for that. I like when we can kind of go all over the place and talk about analytics and make fun of Charles Barkley and all kinds of things, just have a little fun with it. I think people forget to have fun with this sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. It's good to be able to sort of touch on some of the things that you don't otherwise get a chance to talk about. And speaking of the draft, and I'll just touch on it briefly, it seems as though, and there was some talk about this on Cleveland Talk Radio yesterday, I spend about 10 minutes a day in my car, 5 minutes on the way to the office, 5 minutes home. So I don't have a lot of time to listen to Cleveland Sports Talk Radio. That's about it for me. But part of that yesterday was how maybe the Browns' troubles and sort of even though you won 7 games over 4 the previous year, this past season, there's a lot of people that are just disenchanted, and the draft fever that you normally see in this area around this time of year just isn't there. this time around. You just don't hear that much talk about it. People aren't that excited about it, and it's easy to understand why, because all we're talking about is, our general manager getting suspended or fined, or our owner this, and is he going to jail or whatever. That on the field, so that and disappointment with past drafts. It's hard to work up a lot of enthusiasm. When you have 2 first-round picks, if you don't make them count, then you're not going to have the same kind of excitement the following year when you have 2. And instead of number 4 and 22, you've got 12 and 19, which isn't quite as sexy. But it is noticeable that draft enthusiasm is a little bit lessened this season so far.
It'll pick up again. The names aren't as big either, but you are right. And I think sports talk radio in Cleveland hurt themselves the last 2 years, and the Browns drafts backed that up. But you had 2 first-round picks 2 years in a row, and I'm just going to throw guys under the bus. Every station in town couldn't run the Whedon bandwagon strong enough 2 years ago. Once they got their inside tips that Whedon had raced up the Browns board, all of a sudden, bam, they couldn't feed you enough of that nonsense. And then last season, the Manziel money train, and fans figured, you know what? You guys have sold us, you guys, not just the Browns, you guys have sold us a bill of goods the last 2 years in a row. You got parades coming downtown for the money sign and all of that stuff. And it's exactly what you said. They're like, you know what? We're not doing this because you're just going to hype us up on something that's not, we'll just sit back and watch the Browns do it themselves. But between the overhyping and then the underproduction, I'm with you. I feel the same thing. And I don't mind it because I can dig talking about the draft, and I can dig it getting stronger deep in the month of March and into April there. You spend a couple of weeks, we spent a whole season or a couple seasons watching these guys in college. That's cool. But the months and months of it and just the same every day, like if we decided today, Dan, to talk about the quarterbacks in the draft, how can I come back tomorrow and talk about the same quarterbacks going into the same draft from a different angle? Maybe I'll come up with 2 or 3 different angles, but at that point, we're beating the dead horse. And that's part of it too. So I think you put all that stuff together, you hit it on the head, man. There's not the buzz that there usually is. Plus, and maybe other people are finally opening up to this, there's other stuff going on. At least this year, you don't have to sit here and go, well, we can either talk about the Browns draft or the Cavs draft. We can at least say, hey, the Cavs are doing their thing. And the Indians, while they may not have set the world on fire here in the offseason, they didn't do anything to burn the town down either. So nobody's really mad at the Indians right now. So, the buzz is less than it has been in a couple of years. But I think the stations in town really rode these drafts hard the last 2 years. And you got a little battered wife syndrome going on now, too.
Yeah, I think you're right. We are beaten down. One thing that we haven't really talked about, and I didn't even hear about it until just a couple of days ago, is that this year, they do so much hyping of the combine that this year they're adding a veteran combine, and it's something they've never done before, and it's going to be another little piece of programming for NFL Network, I guess. But an interesting idea that the guys are going to be able to come back that have been in the league, washed out of the league, never got into the league or whatever, but are players other than, college seniors who are going to be coming in and have a chance to make some rosters and show their stuff. And it's going to be interesting. Be interesting to see how many guys from that group make rosters and then make contributions based on the what they're able to show the teams during a couple of days of working out. So something else to talk about and think about and put on NFL Network anyway.
I think it's kind of cool of the idea because I only see a few guys getting jobs out of it, but it basically, there's a gap between the guys who get tryouts for individual teams when a guy's got an injury and he'll make a call to an agent. If you've got an agent who's got ins with the teams, they may be able to go, hey, I can get you a tryout here or a tryout there, whatever. But exactly like you said, having that now, it kind of fills those guys that are 3 years in the league. They kind of washed out. People forgot about them. Bam, here they are. Maybe it at least gets you at least now you're on the list where they can call you for a tryout, if nothing else, and it kind of gives you a pulse in the league again for somebody that's still good enough to play, but may have fallen out of the calling circles, may not have the best agent stirring them up tryouts. And I do think you may see a few careers salvaged where the story in the playoffs is, hey, this guy was out of football. He was at the grocery store, and then he went to the combine, and now he's in the playoffs. So I think it'll work for a couple guys. I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah, you're right. And like you say, instead of your agent getting you one tryout with one team or one tryout with two teams,
a whole league
you
tryout.
sort of have an automatic tryout with 32 teams, and it only takes one team to fall in love with it or have a roster spot that they can spare for you. So anyway, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. My man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan, joining us here. Another hour-long chat. I love this, man. Today, got to hit into all kinds of things. Next week, Indians, baby. Monday. Hey, let's you and I talk a little bit on Monday, and let's talk about what you're most looking to see here as the Tribe starts reporting next week and doing the spring training thing.
That sounds good, Jared. I will look forward to that. Catch up to you on Monday then.
You got it. Dan Wismar, my friend, my man from the Cleveland Fan. You guys check him out, theclevelandfan.com. Tweet with them on Twitter at @DWismar. We're going to take a break. When we come back, final segment, not just any final segment, Doug Plagens of the Lake Erie Monsters joins us next, talking Monsters hockey. We preview the Cavaliers and so much more. Don't go anywhere. Doug Plagens, Monsters hockey, coming up next here on The Fix.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get them away!
Hey, boo!
Boo!
The Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD, the excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials. Fight fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd. The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys. Listen up. No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date.
No woman should have to fear violence, especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, you guys are rocking with Reggie Germany, former wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills and Ohio State Buckeye. You're rocking with the Sports Fix.
Feel like a monster.
The secret side of me, I never let you see.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Final segment of the show, kicking off here. Going to be joined by Doug Plagens of the Lake Erie Monsters momentarily on the hotline. J-Rocc with you guys. Let's keep the conversation going. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Keep that conversation going 24/7 here with us, not just live, but throughout the hours that you may be listening on digital delay. And as well, you can hit up the hotline. Not now, but any other time. 216-539-7535. Can't do it now because Doug Plagens is there on the hotline. As soon as I pot him up here, let's see what's happening. The latest week that was for Monsters hockey, Doug Plagens. He calls it for you on the radio. Joins us every week here to talk about it. Doug Plagens, voice of the Monsters. How you doing, my man?
Doing great. How are you?
Hey, I'm all right. Thanks for being here with us. Kind of a in-between here between the two games for the Monsters with Charlotte. Didn't start out well yesterday, even though they got off a truckload of shots. But let's talk about the entire weekend that was. Since you and I talked last week, it's been a busy week for the Monsters here. Some good, some bad.
Yeah, it was just up and down here over the last few. You go into Friday night's game against the Marlies, and that was a game the Monsters had to win. They went into that game, having won 2 in a row. They had points in 6 straight going into that game. They picked up the overtime victory, fell behind, but were able to battle back in the third period, which has become a pretty good characteristic of this hockey team. This season they've won 6 games when trailing after 2 periods of play, which is the second most wins in that situation in the AHL this season. Only Oklahoma City, who's the top team in the league, has won more games when trailing after 2 periods. Not something you want to make a habit of, make a routine of, but it's always encouraging when you see that the team has the ability to bounce back in those situations. So they came back, won the game in overtime on Friday. Everything was looking good. Then Saturday, the red-hot Hamilton Bulldogs came in. They were coming in off the loss, but they had won 6 out of 7 going into Saturday's game. Monsters fell in that game by a 4-0 score here at the Q in front of over 12,000 fans. It was a great crowd at the Q that night, but Hamilton was the team that came out on top on the ice. And it was one of those situations where the Monsters outshot Hamilton, but overall the Bulldogs were able to make sure the second chances were at a minimum, and the couple mistakes the Monsters did make wound up in the back of their net, and that was really all the Bulldogs needed. They won the game by a 4-0 score, snapped the Monsters' win streak at 3, snapped the Monsters' point streak at 7, and then last night, going against the Charlotte Checkers, who are below the Monsters in the standings, second to last in the West, came in and just played a really, really simplified game. They got an early lead. They did what they had to do to protect it. They got a good goaltending performance, and the Monsters fell by a 2-1 score last night. Paul Carey scored very early in the third period. It was one of those situations where you started to think, okay, here we go, because the Monsters were getting a lot of pressure, and you felt like at some point they were going to get something to go their way. They got the 1 goal, but just couldn't get that second one to tie it, and fell by a 2-1 score last night.
And I'll tell you what, man. By the way, you bring that up, 74 shots in the 2 games there on goal. So Monsters have gotten a ton of shots up at the goal. Saturday night. Looking at that with the big crowd. I mean, yeah, 4-0, but for the majority of that game, the Monsters were right there with the opportunity to get back in it, as you said, just couldn't do it. And you hate to see that when you've got the big crowd. It was a Cavaliers-themed night and Tristan Thompson bobblehead and all of that. And by the way, I got to check my mailbox. I know my Tristan bobblehead will be in there. But anyways, good game. And but the Monsters couldn't get it done, and then they give up the 3 in the 4th there. But you hate to see that when you've got a big crowd. They're rocking. Things appeared hot. Monsters were on a roll. Now the last 2 games, even with all those shots on goal, cooled off a little bit here heading into the rematch with Charlotte.
And they've had a lot of close games lately. I mean, going into Saturday night's game, the Monsters had played into overtime 5 straight games, and those are games that can go either way. And the Monsters were having success in those games more often than not. Last night just fell short, and you mentioned the point over the last 2 games, 74 shots on net, just 1 goal. It's not because of lack of attempts, lack of trying. The Monsters are getting pucks to the net. You look at the game Saturday against Hamilton, and 3 of the Bulldogs' goals came in the 3rd period. So that was a game that was very close for most of it until the end when Hamilton started to pull away. But last night's game was a close one. That was one the Monsters would have liked to have had. You get another crack at the Charlotte Checkers, and this is one of those sequences where you would have liked to have taken the 2 games. Now you have to split. You can't afford to lose 2 straight to a team that's below you in the standings. Last night was one of those scoreboard watching nights where nothing went well because the Monsters fell in regulation to a team below them, and then Texas won, Hamilton won, Adirondack won. Those are all teams the Monsters are trying to chase. So it was one of those nights where you kind of saw the games in hand start to disappear a little bit because they were unable to capitalize.
Yeah, like you said, can't let that happen with a team lower than you. And Charlotte was pretty cold coming into that one, too. But
they had lost 4 straight going into last night. But that's one of those games. It was almost the definition of a trap game in a way because you're playing at home. It's a midweek game. And, you've got a team below you in the standings coming in who's been struggling. They had won 1 out of their last 6. They had lost 4 straight going into that game. And, I mean, it's pro sports. Doesn't matter what level it is, what sport it is. It's pro sports. You're not going to lose every game. Teams find a way to win at some point. And when a team comes in ice cold, sometimes those are the games you worry about the most because Charlotte came in last night really with nothing to lose. They're just trying to break out of a losing streak, and they found a way to do it.
For sure. And now, a lot of times still the work, was it 30 games left in the season?
Exactly 30 games left.
Yeah. And they're 5 games back from the final playoff spot. And even more than that, they're within 10 points of literally the top 4 seeds in the playoffs. So there's still a lot of room to maneuver and a lot of real estate, but it gets more precious as it goes. Like you said, you cannot let, and they don't need us to say it, can't let this one slip away here coming up, especially last one at home before you get back out on the road coming up this weekend.
Yeah, then you go to Milwaukee for 2. They're one of the hottest teams in the league. Then you come back home, and there's 2 against Rockford, who's been right up there near the top all season long. So it doesn't get any easier, even though the Monsters do have the bulk of their games this month at the Q, and these are games where you have to make some progress because if you start to turn the page, and obviously, the players very good at taking it 1 game at a time, but people like you and I, we can take a look, flip the page over to March, and see how many road games are coming up in March. So you want to make sure you capitalize here in February and put yourself in a good position going into March.
Yeah, after these 2 with Milwaukee, it's 8 straight home games. You got to love, if you're a player, you've got to love looking at the calendar and seeing nearly a month straight of not hitting the road, 3 weeks plus of staying at the house before you get down the home stretch. Hopefully they can take advantage of that run. But first, got to take care of Charlotte. They'll have Milwaukee on the road here Sunday and Tuesday. By that time, you and I should catch up and talk a little bit about that. By the way, something I wanted to, I noticed you guys are, I don't know what the date is. I don't have it in front of me. How long is the auction going for the Tristan Thompson Monsters jersey there that you guys have going on from the Cavaliers theme night the other night?
I'll have to check on that and get back to you as to when the exact end time is.
I got it.
That.
It's Friday. It's this Friday. So you guys have 2 days left on that one, but that's a pretty cool little piece of memorabilia there if you guys are Monsters fans and or Cavaliers fans. Man, funny story. Friday last week, was it Friday? Yeah, it was Friday. I finished up my game. I was out at Willoughby South. I called the high school basketball game, stopped at a Subway on my way, And one of my debit cards, I picked Lake Erie Monsters design when I got the card from the bank. You know, I love the Monsters, love the Vikings. I got all different cards for different teams. And so I gave her my card, and she goes, "Oh, cool, I'm going tomorrow night." And whatever, some little high school girl. She didn't have the slightest clue what she was going to. And I go, "Oh, cool, it's Cavaliers night." She's like, "What do you mean?" Told her about the gimmick you guys were doing, the bobblehead. She's on the phone, called whoever was going. "You're not going to believe what tomorrow night is." I said, "See? That's because I talked to Doug Plagens earlier today. Now you got the info, man." So there, but that's a true story. Like she was all, "Oh, you're kidding." I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's Cavs night." So, but I had just got done talking to you, and then I went to Subway. Anyways, stupid story, but it was funny. She was all clueless to what she was going to. She was just going to a game, you know. But anyways, so there you go.
Well, either way, we were glad to have her here.
You know what? Good crowd, and unfortunately, Monsters didn't make it happen, but that's cool. That happens sometimes. They've just got to get it going. 30 games left here as we keep it moving. Doug, next time, by the time we talk, there'll probably be 27 of those games left. Let's see what
30
happens.
games left. We'll go in a hurry, and next week, Wednesday or Thursday or so, we'll put it together, and we'll catch back up here.
For sure, man. And by that time, the Monsters will be heading back home for 8 straight. Doug, enjoy the weekend on the road, and look forward to talking to you again next week.
Sounds good, sir. Thanks for having me, as always. Talk to you soon.
As always, thanks for being here. That is Doug Plagens. He is the voice of Lake Erie Monsters hockey on the radio, on television when the Monsters games are televised, and here bringing you the updates for the Monsters each week on the show. You know, they're cohorts, partners in crime over there at the Q. Cavaliers, they're there tonight. You may have heard there's a game tonight. I think it's on television. Some people are making a deal out of it. Miami comes to town here. Last couple of challenges for the Cavs before the first half of the season. That's such an oxymoron. It's not the first half of the season. They're 2/3 of the way through the season by the time they take their All-Star break there. But Cavs, Heat, tonight, 8 p.m. Heat come into this one after an up-and-down start to the season. They're under 500. 7 games under 500 to be exact. Coming in tonight at 22-29. They've got issues, injury issues. Dwayne Wade. We'll talk about that in a minute. Cavs 32-21. 20-9 at home. Tonight, 8 p.m. to accommodate the television will be the tip-off time. And Kevin Love, LeBron James are friends again. All the Love back in the building. I don't know. Kevin Love. You gotta laugh when you read and talk and listen and all the comments back and forth. What else was he gonna say? We're halfway through a season here. It's not like Kevin Love's gonna. He said it's good. He was honest. He said, "I'm not gonna lie. I was caught off guard when I heard about LeBron taking shots at me. I would assume." I like the way he kept saying, "There's no problem. I believe that if LeBron had something to say, he'd come and say it to me." While in the same locker room, LeBron is saying, "Yeah, I did. I made a point at him." And so, whatever. You can't. What are you going to do? Cause problems? You can't cause problems while the season's going on. So, I bet you we revisit this conversation later. But right now, what else was Kevin Love going to say? You got to keep it moving. You got to keep the air clear because the Cavaliers are trying to get something done here. Plus, LeBron should have never caused that little issue anyway. He jumped the gun, and then Kevin Love comes out with 32 and 10, and then LeBron had to be sitting there going, I should have just left well enough alone because you just created a little silly issue that you have to deal with. And Kevin Love may not feel it's as silly as everybody else. It's so easy for the rest of us to go, that's nothing. Kevin Love may disagree with you, but right now is not the time for him to say that, and I wouldn't have expected him to say anything less than he did. Keep it moving. Keep winning. Cavaliers looking to do that here as they try to get this one with the Heat. And I'll tell you what, tonight should be an interesting game. Dwayne Wade is not going to play here tonight. I know at first there was some talk that he may come in, and apparently he's not going to do it. He's also going to miss the All-Star game this weekend, the All-Star stuff, hamstring injury. He's now missed 7 straight games. Really, that's when things started to collapse with the injuries. But that was something that they were dealing with last year with LeBron there and Chris Bosh as well, and the breaking down of Dwayne Wade. And I had to figure that was going to accelerate with even more pressure being put there to try to fill in the gap. And we're seeing that here. Chris Bosh, he's stepping up the slack, doing his thing, but it's still not enough. Luol Deng, he's coming back. Remember, he was with the Cavaliers last year. He put 25 on him the first time the Cavs and the Heat played. we'll see what happens tonight. Heat in some trouble without Dwayne Wade. Not just Dwayne Wade, everybody's banged up. I don't know if Whiteside's going to play tonight. He's day-to-day with his issues. Haslam day-to-day as well. They should both play, but I can't tell you for sure at this point if they are. Meanwhile, with the Cavs, pretty much all good with the exception of LeBron being banged up, and I had a feeling that he's going to be out there here tonight. Cavs, Miami. This game was a bigger spotlight game a month ago on the calendar than it is now, especially because the last time these two teams got together, it was the big Kumbaya session down there in Miami for Christmas Day, and that's kind of out of the way now. Now it's just another team on the schedule. There's not the vitriol that's there, especially that was when the sides were reversed for the last couple of years. So it's not all that. But Cavaliers do need to go out here, get a win. Got to keep it moving as you work your way towards the All-Star break. And heading into that, you've got Chicago, last one on a back-to-back tomorrow. Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland, he'll be with us talking Cavaliers hoops. We'll recap the Heat game here tonight. We'll look ahead to the final game of the first half of the season as well with the Chicago Bulls on the road tomorrow night. And then it's All-Star break time coming up this weekend. 3-point, the dunk. We'll talk about all that on Friday as we get going. And then the Cavs off until February 20th. With the Washington Wizards starting the home stretch of the season. Tomorrow, Eddie Jansen, beat writer for More Than a Fan Cleveland, joins us talking Cavaliers hoops. We'll talk up tonight's game. Remember, 8 p.m. tip-off, a little bit later than usual to accommodate television. It's on ESPN tonight. 8 p.m., Cavs and the Heat, live from the Q. All right, guys. I mean, that's pretty much going to do it for us here today. It's been another good show. We got through a Wednesday here, and slow news day don't mean nothing. We don't need no stinking dysfunctional things to talk about. We'll find our way to get through it. Hey, good show today. Having some fun. Thank you guys for being with us. Looking ahead to tomorrow. Ooh, man, cutting it close here. I've got an appointment coming up after the show. I'm looking at the clock, so we're good here, man. But tomorrow, speaking of appointments, we've got Appointment Radio with Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland. Going to try to see if John McMullen can end up in the house. I don't know. Somebody might buy him. Sell him and buy him again before we come back. I don't know. We'll find out. But we definitely have Mike Brandenberry. Nobody has bought him. Eddie Jansen, More Than a Fan Cleveland. We'll talk some Tribe. We'll talk some Cavs. Who knows what else is going on, but we'll be talking about it tomorrow. If we wake up in the morning, the sky is blue, and the Browns have some issue in the news, we'll talk about that too, guys. So tonight, got some Cavs hoops to enjoy. Get out there and do it. Tomorrow, come on back and talk to us about it. Same bat time, same bat channel. You know the deal. Really? By now, I got to do it again? You know what's up. It's the Sports Fix, guys. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Have some fun tonight. Enjoy the Cavaliers. Let's do it tomorrow, live, right here on the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Fix. Hey, you know what? It would have been better had I been playing the music. I was playing it, and I had the volume potted all the way down, and I'm getting ready to say, he's live radio. What the hell? I'm getting ready to say goodbye, and I go, hey, why don't I hear the music? It's because I had it turned down. So let's do this again. Guys, enjoy your evening. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. That sounds more familiar. We're going to have some fun as well, watching some Cavs hoops tonight and talking with you about it tomorrow. Live at noon. Here on The Fix. We love you. Have some fun. See you tomorrow. This time, I'm really saying goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow right here on The Sports Fix.
Homie, I'm from Cleveland, I will tell the president that. Hardest, yeah, we been there. Made some of the greats here. Midwest best, this is MGK's, yeah. Shouts out to St. Clair, Uptown, yes, y'all. Heading to the flex, get it popping up with Steph Flaws. Whole state monster, this the home of King James. We are not the empire, but this is where the kings play. Cleveland, we rep our city. Blue lights separate the ground from the gritty. We're sick-fitted, hood pass cover any city that we visit. When you're from Cleveland, survivals are must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep, out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland. Okay, now here we go. Welcome to the Cleveland Show.